Hello, my name is Jill Alexi. I am the founder of Martyrian, which is a nonprofit. SeeTheSacred.com, which is a new project and company that have come to life during COVIDian times. And I've also recently been named the Director of Development for the Vatican patrons. And for me, I find that the Sistine Chapel is the best possible sacred space in order to introduce neophytes to the rich tradition of preaching, teaching, and blessing folks with salvation history. It is a program, a whoosh of salvation history that they not only see before their eyes, but which sucks them up into this vortex of tradition, which they can become a part of and participate in merely by finding themselves in the middle of that chapel. At the end of an experience, people will ask me, what's the best book in order to revisit what you just said? And in all seriousness, I tell them to get out a Bible, to get out the Summa, and to get out a glass of wine. Turn on a little bit of background music, and to maybe read one paragraph or one small excerpt, and then to look at the images and to see how the visual text complements the written text. And so with that, I'd like to share with you just a few clips of the Sistine Chapel and my very Dominican, I would say, approach to sharing the Sistine Chapel with people. Essentially what you're looking at is an hour-long experience inside the Sistine Chapel itself, which has been condensed into a 15 to 20 minute narrative for video, which has then been further segmented into clips, so that hopefully now moving forward, the work that I've done inside the Sistine Chapel can be also presented in this small way to people who might not be able to make it there into the chapel themselves. In this past year, it was because of COVID, but people who, for monetary reasons, for health reasons, or any number of reasons, do not have the ability to get to the Sistine Chapel should not be kept from being exposed to this idea of the narrative of the whoosh of salvation history that we find there, in which hopefully they will find in their own small parish or in a local shrine or in a cultural institute that might have pieces that speak from the tradition, or even in some space that blends an experience of nature, great natural beauty, and cultural wonder. And so in this way, in this new and latest way, I hope that we can take the inspiration from the Sistine Chapel and really go out to inspire, motivate, and once again, surprise with an undercover evangelization of the narration of salvation history that we experience in sacred and cultural beauty. When you enter into the Sistine Chapel, you are meant to, as the Romans say, stare in mezzo, to be in the mix, to be in the midst, to be in the middle of it all. Here in this chapel, conceived by Pope Sixtus IV, out of a great desire to reform and renew, you are invited to enter in a spirit of prayer, or maybe you call it meditation, or centered calm. Whatever it is, take that time, take that quiet moment, and then when you're ready, open your eyes and see with your soul. Here, inside the Sistine Chapel, in this locus, you are caught up in the drama of salvation history. As you enter through the processional doors, coming in from the Apostolic Palace, a dazzling floor filled with color and shapes leads you to the altar, its brilliantly frescoed walls, and the glory of Michelangelo's ceiling painted up above. But don't look up just yet. The floor is itself a masterpiece. The various shapes in the floor recall all of the cultures that give privilege to reason. Be it our Jewish brothers and their monotheistic faith and their symbols of the Stars of David that you see repeated in the cosmotesque pattern, or perhaps inspiration from our Islamic Muslim brothers and the symbols of the eternal relationship to Allah that you see in the parabolas that repeat as a star across the floor. Or maybe you see the mathematical perfection, recalling the divine harmony of the Greek square, or if, like me, you notice the Christian symbols first. You see repeated triangles recalling the divine mystery of the Holy Trinity. No matter what you see, all these shapes have been so very carefully cut so as to be placed in golden ratio to each other, meaning that they've taken the mathematical perfection that exists in nature and applied it to the repetitive shapes across the floor. Here, nature has been harmonized. Moreover, the different colors, the deep purples, the vibrant greens, the marbled whites, all these colors recall the various different lands from which these marbles and stones were sourced. This means that when we walk into the Sistine Chapel, following its careful labyrinth cosmotesque pattern, we are literally walking across the lands and cultures of the earth as nature and reason are being perfected. A full 30 years after he completed his ceiling, Michelangelo returned to the Sistine Chapel in order to paint what's now known as the Last Judgment fresco. This painting might better be titled, however, the Parousia, which is a rather fancy Greek word which means amongst all being. This painting, originally commissioned by Pope Clement VII, but then really completed and carried out under the patronage of Pope Paul III, is supposed to represent everything coming together at the end of time, the eschaton. It is at once the ultimate tomorrow and the eternal now. The painting is full with bright blue lapis lazuli that was specifically sourced from lapis quarries in Afghanistan and Pakistan. Michelangelo's purchase orders are still in the Vatican archives. While it's the heavenly blue that calls out to our gaze, it's the hive of activity that swirls around that perhaps disrupts and jolts us. We're seeing figures from the gates of hell, from purgatory, the saints and the martyrs ascending into the heavens. We see the column from the Holy of Holies and the cross of Christ. All of these figures, all of these elements move in a vortex, centering our focus on Christ who is to come and Mary, his mother. His hand is in the open hand of blessing, working not to condemn, but rather as a magnet might work, drawing all towards himself, the good, the beautiful, and the true. His mother, Mary, overwhelmed like us, the viewer, seems to cower, and yet it is her very robes that are the source in which become the entire draping of that beautiful heavenly blue. And so Mary, rather than cowering, offers us her embrace, her hug, as she gives everyone comfort, or better put, consolation, and divine mercy, into that most terrible moment when we can no longer resist the goodness and the beauty and the truth of God, when revealed as our true selves and embraced by our Heavenly Mother, we enter into the eternal moment when the one becomes the many, and the many enter into the one. This fresco, this final judgment, is nothing more than a final certainty that it is a hope which overwhelms us in the eternal moment of salvation history we experience inside the Sistine Chapel.